And got in touch with Paloma, who's around here. And I had sent him a letter, and she said, yes, he's interested. And then by the perfection of coincidence, which is like destiny, I was sick on January 6th, and I couldn't make it. So my flight was January 8th. So we're waiting there, and you know, let's get this going. I want to go home, right, to start teaching. And then all of a sudden, he walks in. And I said, damn it, I have to talk to him now because I'm in touch with Paloma, and so now's the time to get him. And I go, Diego, as he was going over to the migración, and he looks around, and I say, well, soy Héctor Calderón, el profesor de la UCLA, estoy en contacto con Paloma, ¿no? Y ¿te interesa el evento en la UCLA? Me dice, sí. Le digo, ¿lo hacemos? Y dice, sí. Entonces lo hacemos. Entonces dijo, ok. Entonces, a partir de ese momento decidimos, bueno, hacerlo. Y la persona que me ha ayudado con todo esto es una persona divina. Her name is Rebecca Epstein, and she has just been amazing with getting all this together. I'm saying November to this moment. When I first wrote an email to John and Abel and to her, and then she responded just to me. She goes, do you want to kill me? And I said, no, I don't want to kill you. But do you want to do it again? We had just finished the 50th anniversary of John Reggie's City of Night in October. And it was, again, one of those things that takes a lot of planning. And so she said, okay, let's do it. So next year, we're going to have another event. But really, I can't say enough about Rebecca helping out with this. All the folks who have contributed have been mentioned before, you know, Abel, John, Randall, the dean, etc., all those people. And for me, of course, thank you so much. And really to thank Charo Lastra here, que no le va a la América, porque, que no le va a la América, who's been really nice. So he's okay. He's okay. Now you're beginning to know. Anyway, and I'm going to dismiss with introductions because you know Pablo and Charo Lastra, perdón. But we're joined now by Arturo Rodriguez, who is the only other president of the United Farm Workers after the passing of Cesar Chavez. Thank you, Arturo, also for saying yes that he would be here. He changed his schedule to come here. So I'm really pleased that he could be here. And Diego said, yes, I want Arturo here with me. So it worked out. You know, they were able to do that. And of course, we want Pablo Cruz also here with us. Of course, the producer. He wouldn't be here. I just want to say some general things, and you can answer if you want or not. But things that I have thought about for quite some time about Cesar Chavez, and about the film, about these filmmakers and who they are and what they do at this moment in time. That is different from what has been done before in Mexican cinema and Mexican film. And then also for Arturo, I had said through his staff that I wanted an update on the United Farm Workers, because the film ends with triumph, you know, the signing of that contract. But of course, the United Farm Workers is a civil rights era entity who has survived, who has continued after that civil rights era. If we think of Martin Luther King and his movement, well, that didn't survive the 60s, but Cesar Chavez, or the memory of Cesar Chavez and the United Farm Workers, has continued through this time. Now we're in 2014. So I think it's important to point that out. It's one of the enduring labor movements in the history of the United States that is still with us today. And then for the filmmaking here that you just saw, but it's important for me to point out that this is a year, 2013, 2014, when we saw a series of films that had to do with civil rights or African American culture. One of the latest was 12 Years a Slave. And there haven't been anyone else that I know of who's gone back to that civil rights era to do something about Mexican Americans. So it seems to me that's important to point out that this film goes back to that time and to show us an important figure, who gave us in some way an important part of Mexican American history. And it's interesting to me that it's by a filmmaker and a producer who are from the center of Mexican identity in DF, and I live in El DF, that's my world now too, that they have this film about that. They chose a moment in time of Mexican American history that was a defining moment for us in Mexican American history. And it's interesting that these two identities, that center of identity in Mexico City and the Mexican American identity come together within this film. And I say this because this is a radical departure from the history of Mexican cinema, that we have a Mexican director, Mexican producer, who's going to look at this moment in Mexican American history. So, some of the things that we could ask him is why, and the vision. What did you want to do with the film? What do you think is going to be the effect? It's a film, as I told him in our conversation, that goes back up and forth across the border. It was shot in Sonora, and then it's going to be released here in the United States. It's also going to be released in Mexico. So it's a film that's going to travel that way, those two roads. And we could ask him how he feels. So how is the film going to play on the other side of the border for reasons? Do people know Cesar Chavez? Do they know him in Mexico or in Latin America or in Spain? How is this film going to, in some way, give the image of Cesar Chavez that we know? And then here too, it seems important to me to point out that what you saw on the screen has a history. It just didn't begin in 1962, and that history begins in the first decades of the 20th century. That those people who are farm workers are the people who left Mexico after the Mexican Revolution. So there's a connection between Mexico in the 20th century and the farm workers movement. And I think that's important to me to point out. Diego and Pablo have thought about those connections, between who we were through our parents and our grandparents, and then who we are today. And for Arturo, I fly back and forth, and I have two homes. Mexico City, Mexico is my place, and so is LA. These are the two important Mexican centers in the world. There's no doubt about that. And then when I think about what is happening in Mexico and the campesinos in Mexico, what is going on there, Michoacán, Oaxaca, Puebla, and the exodus again, as in the first decades of the 20th century, and this is for Arturo, is there are 23 different indigenous languages spoken in the fields of California. The majority are Triqui, Zapoteco, people who have come from Mexico. And it's kind of repeating the map of Mexico within the United States, but in a sense, a bad map, in a sense that these are the poorest of the poor. These are the ones who inhabit a caste system, a caste that goes back, centuries before. And so I know a community, for example, in Coachella, is a Purepecha community from Michoacán, and you think of everything that is happening in Michoacán right now, of people who have had to leave their places to come here to the United States. And I wonder for Arturo, the role of the United Farm Workers in relation to these populations who are binational. They're not just here in the United States, but their home base is in Mexico. Florida, Texas, California, and Mexico are the home base for most of our farm workers, which tells you a little bit about our time right now and the back and forth. Some of us go back and forth in airplanes, some of us go back and forth in other ways. So these are some of the things that I thought that I thought for my friends that if they wanted to. Maybe Arturo about the indigenous farm workers in California.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Hector, for the opportunity and putting all this together. Obviously, Diego and Pablo, they've done a tremendous job, as all of you saw tonight. What they did in an hour and a half and 90 minutes, what they accomplished and brought to this big screen in terms of the history and the work and the sacrifices and all that took place, not only by Cesar, but as you saw, by so many other people that were a part of that movement at that particular time and continue to be a part of this movement. And throughout our history, we've had different waves of farm workers, different waves of people that have come to work in the fields, dating back into the 1930s, and the Filipino farm workers and Chinese farm workers, and then it continued on with the Bracero program in the 1940s when the Second World War began and folks were imported here into this country to work in the fields. And on paper it sounded great, the Bracero program. In reality, it was a human tragedy that took place with literally hundreds of thousands of farm workers that were brought in here to the United States in that particular time. And today, it's now an indigenous community that largely migrates here. We still have large pockets and large waves of farm workers that have existed here for a long time, from Michoacan, Guanajuato, and Guerrero, some of those states. But certainly, the most recent wave of farm workers has been the indigenous communities. And we're fortunate here at UCLA to have one of the real experts, Dr. Gaspar Rivera, that's here, a professor here at the university, really has taught our organization a lot in regards to the whole indigenous community, and certainly the cultures and the differences that might exist from other groups of people that have migrated here in the past. And so that's a very critical